So I call this satanic inversion um, because it is an elegant kind of art form, but it is pernicious. It's as elegant as a parasite is. Staying hidden from the host. So there's in any lie, there's an element of truth, and the element of truth is that the devil knows. We could call it the devil, right? But if I were to lie to you, if I were to be the best liar in the world, I would have to have elements of truth and be able to twist that truth. And that fundamental truth is what do women want from a man? They want a high status, um, uh, stable earning, um, you know, owns their own house, has consistent high status income, and that's what they want, right? And what feminism says is you can be the man that you want, right? Why depend on another man when you can be the man you want? And that man will want you, right? So what do modern women do, right? Getting married at around 30, right? Which is not ideal from a mate selection standpoint for them. They're getting careers, they're dating around, right? So they're living like men have lived, but with a female body and disposition. And it's supremely destructive, right? In so many levels because they're starting out with feminine dispositions, right? So if you can be the man you want, what do you have to do? You kind of have to kill your feminine, right? You kind of have to say, okay, maybe I don't really want to be a mother. Maybe I don't care about bonding to a single man. I want a variety. I want to believe the whole find myself story when most modern anybody don't know themselves any better than their grandmothers and grandfathers did. Like the whole finding yourself journey. I mean, they're not more mature. There's, if anything, there's systematic narcissism and mannish behavior, the absence of femininity, and the absence of really real masculinity. So what are they left with then? Well, you have a lack of choice. You get told you don't need a man. Well, okay, because the thing is, if you are or you become the man you want, you're not gonna. The polarity doesn't exist, right? The man that you want is attracted to the opposite, right? It's a polar spark. So if you're mannish of yourself, you're not going to attract the man you want, and so that's one lie. And then the next cope is, okay, you don't need a man, and at that point, where what do you do at that point? You become angry, old and bitter, childless, partnerless, right? So you're past 30, and your fertility is on its last 5-10%, and then your options for actual like proposals for marriage are greatly reduced at that age for women. And so now you're comparing them to the relationships you had in your early 20s, which don't match up. I mean, these are probably lower status men that you can get, and your natural disposition is not to want to move backwards, right? Like the feminine disposition is to have a higher status in the tribe. Like that's the genetic drive and diversity, right? So there you have all these things working against you. Now you're turned in on yourself, right? The truth was that the devil understood what you wanted, but he lied to you about how you could get it. And that's the grand delusion, right? And whether we want to personalize it and call it evil necessarily, at the end of the day, people aren't happy. They're not having children. So what happens? Like, you have the antidepressants going up, you have pet markets going up, you have all these kind of independent households, single person households, right? So they have to have separate dwellings. Um, you have increased dependence on the state, right? So you'll marry the state, the overarching masculine, right? Like the amorphous masculine that is asserting itself as this is the direction. You will bond with that in the absence of bonding to a human man. And the deviousness gets deeper and deeper. And I think there's acceleration points, like as they're losing power, the capacity to be inverted is more and more and more, right? So 26 is a big acceleration point, 28 is a big acceleration point, and the question is, can this bond be broken? Because the problem is, I mean, that what prevents this from happening is having a strong father, right? A masculine figure that is not interested in like lying or sex with a feminine can, is really there for benevolent guidance. That's what a father does. So a father's gonna take the place, can occupy the heart of an impressionable female because women are more oriented towards the pack, what the pack wants, what the tribe wants, or what she thinks it wants, right? Without, especially in the absence of a father. But the father can occupy the heart more than the devil can, right? Just his masculinity can take the place of this husband proxy. He can fill the void and hand off to a husband that will treat her in a similar fashion, right? It has her best interest in mind, and is not exclusively like this is not a like use and pump and dump situation, right? From a husband's perspective or from a father's perspective. So they can kind of create a bubble against this influence and stop this inversion. Once that there's no incentive for a husband to do that, um, then at that point, again, you're married to the amorphous masculine, the amorphous state, which is interested in your self-destruction. The state doesn't want more kids. If it has more kids, it wants them to be dependent upon the state. They have their AI, they have their robots. They don't want high-class babies, right? They don't want expensive babies in the West, from what I understand in a sense. So it is an inversion. It's designed to pitch you against yourself. It's designed to give you 50 years of misery and 10 years of cheap pleasure in your 20s. But at the end of the day, that is the trap. When women are aware of that, they're more resistant to it. When they have a father, when they have a loving husband, they're more resistant to all that. But the failure is really on the fathers of this generation to allow this psychological, energetic rape by the world. They've failed in their duty if that happened, but it's important to take agency, right? So if this is a mentality you're affected with and you see its destructiveness, you see the path that it leads on, it's a grand Faustian bargain, right? You get narcissism and physical pleasure to whatever extent to reducing capacities in your 20s, and then you get 60, 70 years of misery, basically, isolation. So that is the challenge, and we're kind of hoisted by our own petards. We're seduced by our own dispositions, and we're not looking out for each other as a as a race, as a species, really. So something to look at and understand. Thanks for listening.